morning, everybody. I'm Hot Rod Bob, and you've got GAAS, the Great American Auto Scene special edition tonight, as we go over some of the facts and figures and history of one of the most famous car clubs ever, the Burbank Road Kings. And they are here in studio with us. Some of the founding members, some of the members that were lucky enough to get in later on, but they're here. They're going to tell a story about the Road Kings with 19 record holders. And I think we decided, was it 6 or 7? Five, count them, 1, 2, 5 Hall of Fame members that are here. Well, some of them are even here tonight with us. So we're going to talk about them, we're going to talk with them, and we're going to give you a little bit of history of the Road Kings as Bruce starts up the information. So we'll have a little music, little information, and then we're going to talk to the Road Kings themselves. We're back, and here's some photographs of some of the famous cars of days gone by. Now, that one was the Bean Bandits at Santa Ana Drag Strip. Now, with me right now, Jimmy Miles. Hey, Jimmy, how you doing?
Just fine.
Good. Right alongside him, TV Tommy Ivo. Hey, he's talkative as ever. And alongside...
Well, I mean, you got to ask a question first, and then I'll answer it.
And then alongside him...
There I am, yeah, okay.
Bob Moravez, Floyd Lippincott Jr.
Thank you.
Jeez.
It's all right, Tommy. We're just giving you a hard time.
Yeah.
All right, these are the guys that were part of the original Road Kings. Now, Bob came on a little bit later. Tommy, you're one of the early members. And Jimmy, when did you first come into the Road Kings?
Well, we first started the Road Kings on November 17th, 1952. There were 17 or 18 of us to begin with.
And what kind of cars did they have at that
Well,
point
the
in time?
first person that came in to come in the club was George Calloway, and a friend of his had a 34 Coupe. And we had Jim Allison. He had a 37 Ford Coupe, and there were a couple of Chevys with Jimmys in them, and a whole mix of stuff. Clyde Richardson had a 41 Studebaker with an Oldsmobile in it.
Yeah, so you guys were drag racers. It was not a hot rod or what they call them today, street rod club.
That's right. Either most of the people in the club there had cars at that point in time, or they didn't. They had helpers that helped them work on the cars. So everybody in the club at that time was pretty devoted to the sport.
Right.
Since it was a young sport at the time, it was a thing to do.
All right, Tommy, you came into the club, and you started racing before you got in the club, but you had some motivation to get in the club.
No, we got that a little mixed up.
Okay.
I started off, I built, actually, my street roadster so that I could get into the club.
Okay.
Little Model T with a short pickup bed on the thing. I was building it to go over to Bob's on Friday and Saturday night, but my desire, of course, was to have a Road Kings plaque hanging off the bottom of it. So while I was building it, I took it over to one of the members that had a body shop up in town, so everybody would stop by there and bench race, and they'd see my car.
All right.
And so that's primarily why I built it.
But you were racing a Buick before that, weren't you?
I was running a Buick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a 55 Buick. I had a flourishing little movie career going.
Did you?
Yeah, yeah. Lasted for about 19 years.
Wow.
Made about 100 movies, a couple of 100 television shows. I was on the movies before they even had TV, But it just was something to do in between, because here we are in Burbank, in Los Angeles, in the kingdom of hot rods. So I built that car, and I took it out to the drags, to run it, see what it would do. And I won 2 trophies. I set a track record and won a trophy for the class that day. And I got 2 trophies, which to an actor was 2 Oscars in one day, and the hook was set.
All right, Bob, you came into the club
1958.
1958, but you didn't have your own vehicle at the time that you raced.
No, I basically I started my career being a grunt for Tommy Ivo and learning how to prepare a car and wash parts, etc., etc. And then I teamed up with a guy named Don Gady. I built my first motor. I was a motor guy, and he didn't want to drive, so another member, Tom Jant, and Rod Pittmiller had a dragster that Gady bought, and I put my motor in it. Pretty amazing.
What kind of motor were you building at that point in time?
It was a small block Chevrolet, 331 cubic inch, with a 371 supercharger. I was the first guy to have a 371 half of a barn door. Well, there was only one ever existed. Pete Jackson and Ken Enderly made me the injector. I wish I had it today.
Yeah. And how fast was that car going at that time?
My first pass at San Fernando was 122 miles an hour in about 10 and a half seconds.
Wow.
I remember the beginning and the end. Nothing in between.
Nothing in between. Yeah.
Nothing in between.
Now, what got you started in drag racing?
Tommy Ivo.
Okay, so it's his fault.
He was my faithful dog.
I was faithful bird dog. The crazy part about it was Perdone took my spot.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You had a number of people that you got into the club and got them hooked into drag racing.
You were my helper. You got a big leg into the club. Yeah.
And Don actually went on tour with you.
He did. Yeah, no, he was actually a pretty good kid at the time.
He grew out of that quick, didn't he?
Well, he had the darndest laugh you'd ever heard in your life. If something would strike him funny, he'd have everybody in the room laughing because he'd go,
oh, and is Don watching us now?
Yeah, if he could only see us now.
Jimmy, you got into the club, and the car that sticks out in my mind, besides your 34 coupe, was the altered.
Yes.
The Magic Muffler car.
Well, there was about 2 or 3 Magic Muffler cars. The first one was the 34 coupe. The second one was a metal Fiat that we put with a Scotty Finn chassis. We ran for a while, and then we had problems with that thing down at San Diego. It got upside down. It got all ruined, but I was okay. Then the third one was a reproduction of the Fiat. And then later on, we had one called the Black Magic car, which we ran. We ended up with running quite well with the car. We had a couple of friends of mine that helped us quite a bit. A fellow by the name of Eddie Flournoy that runs a funny car and a Top Fuel car, and another fellow that worked with the surfers by the name of Tom Job. He was probably about the best person you could ever get to run fuel. And it sure worked good, I'll tell you. We never had much problems with the car, and we did real well.
Now, a lot of people see or will remember the photograph that's been immortalized in magazines and everything else of the crankshaft coming out of the Fiat. But a lot of people thought, and I was one of them, that you were the one that was driving at the time.
No, the car that night was driven by Gary Essman. And we were quite lucky that it happened on the starting line rather than down in the lights, because that crank coming out would have just pivoted over.
Now, what did you do with the crankshaft after that run?
After that run, I gave the crankshaft, and I had 6 rods and pistons. I gave them to a fellow that ran the Long Beach swap meet. Wilson was his name, and he had a fuel holder that he ran at the time, too. A week later, he had the crank checked and had it straightened, ground 10 under, and 2 new pistons and 2 new rods and another car.
It was back going again.
Back
All right.
running again.
Now, back in those days, it wasn't like today where, after each round, you've got 45 minutes to rebuild the engine and check everything. What was it like back then? Tommy, you were running fuel. You ran gas, and then you went to fuel for a while.
Yeah, well, no, at the time they were running gasoline only. That was the idea of all these multi-engine cars. Because when we ran out, my single-engine dragster was the quickest dragster in the country. It was just an unblown Buick car. But when we ran out of horsepower, we added another motor to it. And then it was the quickest and fastest car. It was the baddest bear in the country. Then we went to 4 motors.
Yeah.
But just as we got that done, they decided to run fuel again. So
Okay.
I only took a couple of runs in the car, and I sent it back east to tour and ran my fuel car. And I had 36 different cars in 12 different classes, and towed far enough to go to the moon and back 3 times over a 30-year period. I mean, I did a little drag racing, a couple of thousand races.
Couple thousand in between that. Now, you told the story once that you got this new Dodge Transporter,
Yeah.
and it didn't have power steering.
Oh, that was a mistake, trying to move that thing around with the in the pits, because we put glass walls on the side of it, and we had 2 dragsters inside because they didn't have aluminum blocks yet. So if you blew one up, you had to have a backup car and then put a Corvette up on the top of the whole thing, and that was a trapeze act getting it back off of there again.
Oh, I remember when you retired. I lived around the corner from you, and you had the Transporter parked out just to the side of your house, and I'd take my kid over there on his bicycle and show him your Transporter, and he doesn't remember a thing about it. But man, the first time I saw that, it was like, wow. And you were the first TV star I met. I was 10 years old, and you were judging a model car contest.
Really? Yeah.
And you know, you were the first TV star I ever met.
Well, they hung all kinds of different nicknames on me. First, they had Instant Ivo, because my reaction time were pretty good. They didn't have timers at the time. You could just visually see that I'd leave quicker. Then we went to Poison Ivo for a while, which was kind of a spin-off on the deal. But then I had a TV series, Margie, showing on television, and Mickey Thompson named me TV Tom, and it stuck from there on in.
All right, now, Bob, you're probably best known for a twin-engine dragster called the Freight Train.
Yeah, originally when I started driving the car, it was a Quincy Automotive twin-engine car owned by John Peterson and I Frank. Later on in my career driving the car, Judy Thompson, Mickey's wife, named it the Freight Train because of the black smoke it used to put out in puffs at Fontana Raceway during the summertime.
Now, you guys had a lot of choices of tracks in the Southern California area. Jimmy, what was your favorite track here?
My favorite track was probably Orange County.
Orange County.
I liked it the best.
And that was one of the newer tracks.
That's true.
Tommy, about you ran Saugus, San Fernando.
Oh, we ran Saugus. Yeah. That was better, slightly better than a dirt track. But we ran San Fernando every Sunday, and every Saturday night we'd go down to Long Beach too. But where the whole thing started actually was Tom Jant, who you're going to talk to a little later on here. He had a 32 coupe. Ford coupe, yellow, bright yellow, and he asked me to go to the drag races one time. Wow, getting to go to the drag races with a race car. I was sitting on the curb before the sun came up, waiting for him to come on out. And while we were out there running the car, Jim Miles here made a run in his car, and he left black marks all the way from the starting line to the finish line, and that was the most astonishing thing I have ever seen in my life. And the steering wheel, he didn't have it. Thank you. The check is in the mail.
Yeah.
He had a steering wheel that wasn't mounted to the dash, so he'd push it to one side, climb in, and pull it back over and steer it on up the track, and leave black marks all the way to the finish line.
But Bob, you started out driving other vehicles, single engine, then dual engine, and you even got into go-karts for a while.
Yeah, supercars. I rented a building to imported zip cars from England. They had a lot of the Formula One guys that started in Emerson Fittipaldi and all road race gearbox motorcycle powered. go-karts, and they were 150-mile-an-hour cars. In fact, I was clocked on the back side of Riverside Raceway going into Turn 9 at 161 miles an hour.
Wow.
A half-inch off the ground, no suspension, downshifting. It was a kick and a half. It was a drag race out of every corner.
I can imagine. So drag racing was the club. You had to be a racer in one way, shape, or form. Either a crew person, a car owner, or a driver. Is that correct?
It was.
Oh, absolutely. I think some of the club meetings, too, that should be mentioned at this time. If you had a plaque on your street car and you were found by another club member to be squirreling around, making a bad name for the club because of the plaque on your car,
Yeah.
club meetings were every Sunday night. And the man to my right here, we would have bids on SWATs.
Listen, that SWAT deal, I carried a wad of cash with me when I went to the club meeting because they had a SWAT.
Okay.
And I mean, they'd kill me with that thing. They'd take me out in a body bag.
All right, so
we'd bid off for the SWAT,
Yeah.
and I'd buy my own SWATs back all the time.
there you go. Well, yeah, I just thought you used it for cushioning.
Yeah,
No.
Boy, you'd have some cushioning.
And for those of you that are old enough to remember SWATs, that was a board, basically, and if you got in trouble, you got nailed across the backside.
A lot of fraternities had them.
Yeah,
Plus, if you ever watch cricket, English cricket,
yeah.
the bat
yep.
looks exactly like that. And
Yeah.
let me tell you, it's heavy and it hurts.
Yeah, and we still had them in school when I was in school, so I missed out on that fun by a little bit anyway. Jimmy, you got into the club with which car?
My 49 Ford.
49. What was done to it?
I had a 296 flathead in the thing.
Okay.
And I used to run Saugus every week for about a year. And it would run about 89 to 91 miles an hour. And I always had a friend of mine that came up with this, it was about a 49 or 50 Merc with a Buick in there, and he'd beat me every week.
Oh.
And that was in the 1941 to the 1954 GAAS class that they set up there. So what I did, I got a 41 Ford and I stripped it down completely and took everything out of the inside, the door panels and everything, and put the flathead in that and went up there and ran 104 and beat all those guys.
There you go. So drag racing was the thing.
It
All
took a year to get a trophy.
but you got it.
I got it.
All right. We're going to take a quick break now, change the panel, give you some more insight to the famous Road King Car Club that began in 1952. This is Hot Rod Bob, and we'll be back in just a moment. right, welcome back to GAAS, the Great American Auto Scene. I'm Hot Rod Bob, and here with a second panel of original Road King members. We're going to start off right to the left of me, or left to the right to the over here. Tom Jant. How you doing, Tom?
I'm doing great, thanks.
And Eddie, Fast Eddie.
Hi, Bob.
Hi, Eddie. How you doing?
Pretty good. I was not an original road member. I came in 85.
85, but you're one of the older guys.
I'm the old guy.
Yeah, the old guy, yeah. Okay. And alongside him, record holder, and you, your brother, and your dad were hard-charging drag racers, and it's Butch Cedarquist.
Yes. How you doing, Bob?
Doing great. Butch, why don't you tell us a little bit about the cars you had? We've got some of them we've been showing on screen. Tell us about how you got involved with the Road Kings and drag racing.
Well, my brother was older, and he had a roadster he drove to high school.
Okay.
And he decided to ran it at San Fernando. Well, San Fernando wasn't open yet. Saugus. Went to Saugus
okay.
Light, Inyo Kern, Paradise Mesa down to San Diego.
Okay.
But that was a C Street Roadster class. And then we had a B. We put a DeSoto in it. Then we put a Chrysler in it, A, and we held records on all those classes.
Okay.
Then we got an A Roadster, and it ran 150 at Long Beach. It was not the first, but one of the first to run 150 on gasoline.
Oh, gasoline. That was
And
it?
then we built a AA fuel altered.
Wow.
At one time was booked or not booked, I guess, stated to be the world's fastest, 171 in 908.
What year was that? Do you remember?
1963.
1963.
And we beat
Wow.
Mooneyham and Sharp at Long Beach, but I'll give you the real truth. Mooneyham blew up.
Oh.
But we did beat
You
them.
still beat them, yeah. Hey.
And we had it was drag race junior fuel, and we held the #1 spot in that for a few months.
All right. Now, Tom, you got involved with the club when?
1952,
So you were one of the original members.
correct.
And what were you driving, or were you a crew guy at the time?
Oh no, I had a 42-door sedan that I put an Oldsmobile in,
Okay.
and I got tired of blowing the transmissions in half and snapping the axles. So I got this little 32 coupe, and I actually was working at Mike's Auto Parts up in Burbank. And
Okay.
I was a delivery guy, and I worked in the machine shop, and the guy showed me how to do engine stuff. So I built myself an Oldsmobile, and put all the trick stuff in it with 4 carburetors, and went street racing first.
Uh-oh.
And then off to Saugus was our closest place. That was before San Fernando.
San Fernando. Yeah, a lot of
And,
people don't know that there was actually a drag strip up in Saugus. Many people know about the circle track that was there, but the drag strip doesn't get much note. That was around for a lot longer, but
I think the drag strip was there before the Roundy Round
Yeah.
track.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was,
way
yeah.
before. And they ran it one direction, and it went out onto the road, and then they ran it the other way, and you shut off going up the hill. And I remember one time there was a coupe,
Yeah.
went up the hill, and unfortunately the steering went right through the driver.
oh,
Yeah, it was bad.
yeah. Well, that was the early days before the safety and the
yes.
tech inspections that we have today. So you guys were the pioneers. You guys kind of broke ground on safety and so forth. Now, Eddie, you said you came into the club later on, and you were driving a variety of cars. The last one, the PDQ Dodge.
Yes, 1963 Dodge 330. Ran pretty good. I won the Chrysler Power Nationals in 1994. I ran 12 rounds, which was a lot of rounds. It just was lucky. In the old days when I was a kid, I raced a 37 Chevy. We called it the Puddle Jumper out at San Fernando. I never really did anything. It ran 100, 100, 100. Like Butch, I think it was Butch, I had a B&M Hydro with an Oldsmobile motor, and it would never do anything but run 100.
Now, you were probably one of the racers that raced the later in the latest racing. Now, Bob Aramis drove Top Fuel for quite a number of years into the nostalgia racing with the good guys, but you and we'll have Al up in a little later. You guys were the latter Road King members that kept on racing.
Yeah, we went out to Palmdale quite a bit. The Road Kings had a team, and the Early Riders had a team, and we'd run every year against the Early Riders. It was fantastic. I ran the Dodge, and I ran my 50 Ford, which I really had more fun with my 50 Ford. It just was easy to drive. and I won 2 of the Road Kings brackets. And we just had a lot of fun out there. We sure missed that track.
Okay, yeah, and we used to call the lane that you were in the potty lane because we put you in lane 9 at LACR, which was right alongside the porta potties.
Yeah, it was a great time.
Yeah. Tom, what are some of the things that are memorable to you about the Road Kings and their drag racing heritage?
Well, do you want to talk about the racing, or you want to talk about the Road Kings?
Oh, let's get the dirt out. Come on, let's talk about the guys.
Well, as everybody knows, Ivo's quite the jokester, but he wasn't the only one that used to pull some pranks.
Okay.
And it was a kind of, can you top me or can I top you kind of thing. And Tommy and I, I don't know how long we've known each other, but his story about me taking him to the drags wasn't kind of different than my idea than his.
Okay.
He was begging me for about a month ahead of time to take him to the races. And I'm going, who's this little squirt guy here? He doesn't even have a driver's license yet. And he shows up in, I think had his 53 Buick with the eyelashes and all the trick stuff on it. And we just antagonized him. So I took him to Saga.